Pay piggy. Band-aids don't give you AIDS. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to 9 to 5. Pay piggy. Wage cock ain't no way to be alive. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to that 9 to 5. Pay piggy. I want to feel like I am so alive. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to my 9 to 5. Pay piggy. I like that. Actually, that's okay. I'm kind of liking that. AIDS. It just ends with AIDS. Okay. Right there. Ooh, I like this. Pay piggy. Ooh, pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Band-aids don't give you AIDS. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to 9 to 5. Pay piggy. Wage cock ain't no way to be alive. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to that 9 to 5. Pay piggy. I want to feel like I am so alive. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to my 9 to 5. Pay piggy. I like that. Actually, that's okay. I'm kind of liking that. AIDS. It just ends with AIDS. Okay. Right there. Ooh, I like this. Pay piggy. Ooh, pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Band-aids don't give you AIDS. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to 9 to 5. Pay piggy. Wage cock ain't no way to be alive. Pay piggy. Hey piggy, don't make me go back to that 9 to 5. Hey piggy, I want to feel like I am so alive. Hey piggy, hey piggy, hey piggy, don't make me go back to my 9 to 5. Hey piggy, I like that. Actually, that's okay. I'm kind of liking that. AIDS. It just ends with AIDS. Okay. Right there. Ooh, I like this. Pay piggy. Ooh, pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Band-aids don't give you AIDS. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chance. Pay piggy. Just give me one more super chat. Pay piggy. Ooh, ooh, ooh. Pay piggy. Don't make me go back to. Yo, what's up? Welcome. I got my 1993 jean shirt. I even got on some jorts at the same time with a braided belt. And it's looped in a weird knot that only a Boy Scout could do. Boy Scout, not a Boy Scout, a Boy Scout. I don't have a fanny pack on because my mom didn't give me my allowance today, but that's okay. And so I wanted to kick today off with some stuff that's a little weird, a little different. We haven't done film analysis by looking at trailers, and we are going to do open forum debate Q&A on the topics listed. But I was sitting there this morning, I was like, I want to talk about theology, but at the same time, I don't want to just talk about theology. And as you know, we do a lot of different things to this channel. And then I thought, well, I'm done with Paralandra, and so I'm working on part 3 of the Space Trilogy. And there's a lot of mythological and dark themes that pop up, especially in Paralandra, due to the demonic possession of Professor Weston. So I want to have that open on the floor as well as we get into demonic possession and the possibility of that and recent films that I saw that were good. And then I want to get into open forum debate because good and evil are really fundamental questions, but a lot of people can't give an account for good and evil. So I'm going to kick it off with looking at a few films that I recently enjoyed that dealt with the notion of the demonic, that dealt with the notion of evil in a interesting way. Oh, I forgot one. Actually, there's one I want to add to that. A couple of these are foreign independent films. They seem to be, it seems like Ireland is really putting out, it's not the pit, it's the hole, the pit or the hole. Ireland seems to be putting out pretty good movies. Now I'm getting them all mixed up. When it comes to like independent horror movies, right? Ireland's pretty good at that. Is this it? Let's see. I don't think this is it. No, that ain't it. What was the name of that movie? I just watched it. I watched it twice, actually. The Hole. I think it is The Hole. How many different... There it is. The hole in the ground. You got to get more specific, right? You can't just talk about pits and holes. You got to talk about the hole in the ground. Be very precise into which hole you're talking about. Can't just be a pit.
You know, when I was your...
Can't just be a dugout. Can't just be a pothole. Even though the potholes are really bad. I don't know if you know that, but potholes are getting really bad because Uncle Big Daddy Government is stealing everybody's money. So I was thinking about these movies, and I was thinking about Paralandra, and I was thinking about the demonic, and I was thinking about different arguments that have popped up about the arts, the value of the arts. I don't think we should take these really kind of rigorous views that the arts are inherently bad somehow. And it seems to me, being a big movie buff and cinema man for many years, 2 books on movies. If you don't have those, go get them at my website. It's like horror is one of the last genres to not be fully kizucked. Now, it's probably going to be, and it is in the process of being kizucked, just like the video game world is. But every now and then, gems will pop up that are not totally kizucked. Very, very rarely still, but they're there. It's just that now you kind of, if you want to find a good movie, you got to like basically do research to find a good artistic production. But one thing that's interesting about horror movies that we've noticed is that some of them, many of them are totally degenerate. Obviously, I'm not saying all horror movies are good, but a lot of horror films will still preserve this notion of virtue and vice, and that when you overindulge in the vices, you are basically kind of like signing yourself over to the beings, the entities, the creatures, the monsters, the demons, whatever they are. Right? You're kind of like forging a pact with the vices to invite them to come. Yes, I am here with my friends in the campground, and I am indulging in liquor, firing up joints. I'm trying to mac on the chick in the tent. Please, demons, creatures, entities, beings of the night, perhaps come get me. It's like a provocation. The entities also don't like when you are rash, right? They don't like the guy joking around. Oh, you believe in the local superstitions, do you? Right, that dude's dead. That dude's gone right away. Foolhardiness, rashness, arrogance, hubris. You got a hubris going on. The entities, the creatures, the beings, the creatures of the night, they attack and feed on when you give into the vices, you see. And so if you think about it, horror movies actually aren't that bad. And by the way, a lot of classic literature is kind of horror movie. I mean, read, the Iliad, the Odyssey. There's sections that are horrific. There's sections, people going into Hades. Even Christian theology has the catabasis, the descent into Hades. It has the limited descriptions of the realms of the demonic, the worlds of the creatures of the night, the cities of Hades, even in one of the texts, cities of the dead. So different texts of scripture, of course, describe various demonic entities and beings: Leviathan, Azazel, Satan, Lucifer, Pythonic spirits in the book of Acts. So we actually get quite a few different descriptors of various demonic and fallen beings and entities. So scripture and liturgical tradition, the liturgy, when it gives us the different descriptions of the hierarchies, principalities, powers, thrones, dominions, and so forth, we get a lot of this. And a theme that seems to pop up recently that I'm noticing, I don't know why, it's just in things that I've happened to see, is the notion of a warp zone or a hellmouth. And so I was watching these goofy video games documentaries about video games, because I was thinking about the significance and the meaning of virtual worlds, symbolic worlds, worlds that exist and then at the same time kind of don't exist, right? And I think metaphysically speaking, that we can understand that through the metaphysics or the ontology of different kinds of existence. Not everything has one kind of existence or exists on a chain of being. And so different things can have different types or kinds of existence. For example, some things are only physical. The body, right? The body is extended in space and time. Other things are immaterial and non-physical. The soul. the mind. Angels, etc., have other kinds of being or existence beyond merely physical. And so they're more like the soul, or more like noetic beings, as we say in Christian metaphysics, Orthodox metaphysics, to be specific. So this sort of vast cosmos of differing kinds of beings and different types of things, which again, as we saw, C.S. Lewis really playing with, having a lot of fun with, as a literary device in the Space Trilogy in Paralandra, with the Unman. Remember how when Weston is possessed, right? He starts calling him the Unman. So he's like the inversion of man. And the elements of horror films that are really good about this, and I'm not talking about the really disgusting, like basically torture prawn type things, right? We're not talking about where people are getting off on just really disgusting stuff for no reason. No, it needs to have a significance, a meaning, a purpose, a symbolic value. And even though I would not necessarily recommend everybody watch all these movies, because sometimes they're pretty gruesome. Not in every case, sometimes. For example, Hereditary was not the movie I expected. We did do, I think, one or two different kind of breakdowns, analyses of Hereditary. But Hereditary did have this notion of ritual magic leading to demonic possession. And that's kind of fundamental to that plot. And the way they filmed it, with a lot of foreshadowing and sort of omens beforehand, it was very well done just as a movie. And that studio has put out a few different films kind of in the same vein. They did the horror film Pie Wacket. I didn't really enjoy that. That was a little too gross and gruesome. But it also played with this notion of the demonic. So what's interesting, and the reason I think that horror films still have a draw, is that just like Twin Peaks or the worldview of, Agent Cooper, even though it's not explicitly Christian, we're noticing that people are still drawn to this because the world has been demythologized and desacralized, but we still have this sense of evil, and the world seems to be more and more evil in many ways. And so people are figuring out, I think, that, hey, actually, maybe reality is more like horror movies. Like maybe we really are living in some kind of weird horror movie. I mean, I don't mean that in a literal sense, but you know what I mean. Horror movies re-enchant the world. And that was something that Lewis was making the point with his character Ransom in, part 1 and part 2 of the Space Trilogy. So I think we're drawn to horror movies not just because of jump scares and stupid crap like that, but the world is not as the atheistic materialists have described it, right? The world is not this purely matter in motion universe. The world is an enchanted place. It would seem to be the case that the enchantment of the world has been removed for centuries, at least since the Enlightenment, since that whole project. And now it is being re-enchanted with alternative spiritualities, you see. DMT, New Age, 60s counterculture, various cults and sects, meditation, yoga, blah, 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 Eastern meditation, Hinduism, on and on and on. So there's a re-enchantment, and that's why I think that this is the last genre that is still kind of somewhat rooted in reality without being totally kizzucked, even though it is in the process of being kizzucked, right? It's like now we have to have a version of horror for every weird, super creepy sub-niche of human vices, if you catch my drift, right? And a lot of horror movies are, they will actually kind of spur you on to virtue, I think. Now I'm going to give you a couple examples, and can we tease out certain moral messages or metaphysical messages from some recent horror films, and then we will get into the questions of debate, open forum Q&A, and so forth. So I just wanted to get together a few that I watched recently that, for various differing reasons, had interesting insights. So the first one was The Hole in the Ground, again, an Irish horror film. The Leprechaun people up there seem to be pretty good still at making movies. So shout out to the Leprechaun people, the lads and the lassies who are still kind of putting out some good movies. And this was a variant on the theme of body snatchers. I love body snatcher movies because doesn't it feel like we're entering a world where people are becoming synthoids? They're becoming body snatched. They don't seem to be the way normal humans are meant to be. And there's varying reasons for that, which I have covered in about 1,000 videos in the last 10 years. So we won't go into that. Everybody knows my takes on all that. But I feel like at times films express this better than lectures and talks, don't they? Because humans are oriented to understand things in a story way. We're not actually made. I'm not saying it's wrong to have rational abstractions. Nothing wrong with that. But we're sort of made to have beginning, middle, and end stories that explain reality. That's why stories are so powerful. That's the oldest art form, not listing things in a news report. And all of the body snatcher pod people type of films are just perfectly applicable to the world that we experience, aren't they? They seem to be to me. So let's look at The Hole in the Ground, and we're going to just watch a few images of the trailer. I will have some spoilers, so don't... I'll try at my best to not tell the ending of every one of these, because I'm sure a lot of people have not yet seen these. But let's look at the plights and travails of a single mom moving her. Like, all of these Irish horror movies are always about going out to some weird ass estate in the middle of nowhere in Ireland. So apparently we don't want to do that. I think two or three of these are Irish horror films. So there's just something about single moms that they just want to take their kids out to the middle of nowhere in Ireland. And don't do this. It's not a good idea.
I moved town once too.
You'll settle in, sweetie.
Maybe.
We're gonna be happy living here, I promise. Sweetie? Chris?
Mom?
Never run off me like that again, okay?
Good morning, Mummy.
Now, the first thing that I liked about this film was that as you're watching it and you notice that something has gone on with this gigantic freaking hole in the ground, right? That is inexplicable. We don't know. The whole movie we're watching it, we don't know what's going on. And all that we do know is that her son has been basically turned into Patrick Bateman. He's like a little mini version of like a psychopath boy, right? He's like WASP psychopath in grade school. And he doesn't seem to process or experience anything or emotions at all in the same way that the rest of humans do. And he's very different from the boy that she, raised all the way up until the day before this event. But we don't know what has happened or why he's acting so strange. And of course, it's one of those slow burns. If you watch trailers now, like every trailer and critic phrase is a taut slow burn. Remember in the 2000s, every movie was a gritty, fast-paced, gritty, slow-paced, gritty. Now it's taut slow burn. And sometimes the slow burns are fun, but they can also kind of be super annoying and eventually they become boring, actually. So I don't know why horror movie people have a difficulty pacing it between jump scares and taut slow burns. Okay, we can get maybe a better pacing idea, maybe a little bit of both. Like maybe a plot that moves along and doesn't spend, 10 minutes on a bug, some kind of weird bug, or like in this one, there's a great sequence where the kid, he's progressively getting weirder and weirder, and he eats a bug, right? And it's done very well to where it's not disgusting, but it's just weird. So if you can find that balance between not being just gross for gross sake, which is, I don't like just gross movies, or they're repulsive. But this movie does it very well.
You get those. Do you ever look at your kids and not recognize them? He's not himself.
Mom, look out!
The other thing too is that this movie did well with the tropes, right? The crazy old coot, last chance gas station, the warning. There's always a variant of that archetype in horror films. Everybody knows this, right? Cabin in the Woods lampooned this. And here you get the crazy old woman. And you always think that it's the crazy coot that warns you that is part of it, or in on it, or a creature, or a demon, or an emissary of the night. And no, it's not. They're just freaking effed up from the trauma they went through. But you never notice this when you're the protagonist in the horror film, do you? And so it takes her the whole film to realize that it's not the crazy old coot, it's not the old hag that is the emissary or the source of the evil. Now that was pretty obvious, I think, but I did not immediately figure out what was going on in this film. So anytime a film, because I'm basically a movie expert, detective 101 now. I'm like the greatest movie detective in the world now. So it's very hard to fool me in a movie. Jamie can attest to this. My family can attest to this. I basically ruin everyone's movie in the midst of, because it's this. Shut up! Why'd you tell us? Because it's kind of true that there's a limited number of plots, but it's also not really the case that there's a limited number of plots, because you can actually play with plots and archetypes and whatnot and storytelling in a lot of different ways to have different types of plots. So yes, in a sense, there's a limited number of archetypes and stories that you can tell, but there's also an infinite variation on how you can tell them. And any way that you can do the pod person synthoid story, I enjoy it. And this movie pulled it off. It did it very well. I'm not gonna spoil the film, but and this is not really. It has a Lovecraft element too, right? With out in the middle of the woods, a gigantic, inexplicable hole that perhaps something crashed there, or we don't know. And that's very Lovecraftian. That's very Color Out of Space, right? And this was before Color Out of Space, right? I'm pretty sure this came out a year, maybe around the same time of Color Out of Space. But that actually, there was multiple Lovecraftian movies that came out right around 18, 19, 20. There was Sacrifice, which is straight up Lovecraft. There was Color Out of Space. There's this. There's a couple more that I'm just not even thinking of. I guess you could say even Mandy is kind of Lovecraft influenced, right? Just these inexplicable, just sort of entities, beings, even more abstract, like colors, the color from space that arrives and just kind of F's up everything. But you'll notice that what they always do is invert things too, right? So inversion is typically retained in the horror genre as something that is dark and demonic, and that's completely true. That's what horror, that's what the demonic does, is that it inverts the good, because it doesn't have any creative power on its own. It can only mimic, copy, and invert what does exist and does have creativity and power, which is the good, which ultimately is God himself. Now there's not just one kind of good like the Greeks thought. There's created good and there's uncreated good, and that's one thing that sets the Orthodox or the Christian metaphysic off from the Hellenic metaphysic. Most of the pagan metaphysics, God or the gods and humans and creatures and beings and rocks and sticks and trees, they're all on the same chain of being. They're just higher or lower on the chain of being. And that's because there's not a notion of creation ex nihilo. There's not a distinction between the creator and the creature. So a lot of pagan mythology at least still ironically gets the notion of the demonic correct, whereas modern day thought, postmodern thought, right, it kind of rejects all this. It's seen as impossible, mythological, superstitious, right? But again, the world is being re-enchanted because the world is becoming more and more overtly evil on a mass open scale.
It's not your boy. He's not your son.
She didn't mean him any harm, you know. Chris reminded her of our son.
What happened to him?
What happened with where somehow every horror trailer suddenly got the same boom, bling, boom, boom, bling? Is it just plucking violin strings? Bling, bling. Literally every horror, like I don't even know what the movie is about, but when I hear that, I already can figure out half the plot from just the violin plucks.
She was convinced that he was an imposter.
It's not Chris. It's not him.
Any history of disorders in your family?
The other thing too, kid actors are usually terrible, like horrible. This little kid plays it really well. Like he does it perfect. I don't know how they got him to be, maybe he's a synthoid boy in real life. I don't know, but they got him to play like super psycho Patrick Bateman boy, very perfect. Which again, most of the time kid actors are just terrible, like laughably so, but this kid did it really well.
Mummy, what's wrong?
You're not my son. Tell me the truth.
I am.
Stop lying.
I'm not lying. Mommy.
Now, I won't tell you any more, but you'll notice that there is also in this a Catabasis theme. And that will actually come up in a couple of these today that I'm going to mention because I think it's almost rooted in the history of the world itself, that there's got to be someone who rescues us, not just from death, but from the kingdom of death, from Hades, aka the harrowing of Hades. And as you guys know, I've made a huge deal out of this in the fact that this has been completely lost in theology in the West. And you could even construct an argument, I think, convincingly, that the loss of the doctrine of the harrowing of Hades is enough to basically cancel out Latin Christianity, right? I mean, it's there in theory in Rome, in words, but has no real significance. It's not in Protestantism. It's basically gone. And it's the core element of one of the phases of Christ's redemption for Orthodoxy, right? Incarnation, ministry, death, burial, descent, and resurrection and ascent, right? The descent, according to St. Paul, how could he ascend if he didn't first descend? Okay, and that's not just talking about him coming to earth. That's talking about him also descending into the heart of the earth, as Jesus himself said. And it's in countless Psalms that David predicts and prophesies the descent of Christ into Hades. It's even in freaking horror movies. It's in pagan literature. It's in the Odyssey, the Aeneid, the Iliad, right? The descent into the underworld. What is it, book 6 of the Aeneid? Virgil's descent into Hades. I mean, if this is retained even in, Greek and pagan mythology, how in the world did the Latin heterodox churches lose this so quickly? It's bizarre to me how this became. I mean, I know how in the sense that I can look at what their theological presuppositions were in different centuries, and you can see how it gradually just sort of became irrelevant. I mean, they still professed it in name, but it's like, well, but what is the meaning of it, right? It's really the sacrifice on the cross that becomes the focus of the West, especially in the Middle Ages. So, I mean, the descent, the harrowing of Hades, the preaching of the gospel in hell, in Hades, really becomes kind of insignificant or irrelevant to the overemphasis on the sacrifice and the pain and suffering, the passion on the cross, you see. I mean, what does Latin theology always talk about? The passion, the passion, the passion, the passion. Right? And they profess the belief in the resurrection, but for the Latin church, the power of the resurrection really, again, became of no significance because they lost the doctrine of uncreated grace and theosis. They lost it as a clear teaching. I'm not saying that some of them don't intend to believe in it. All right, so we're not here to talk about that stuff. Today's talk is not about the geography of the earth. We're here to talk about horror movies, evil, mythology, the descent into Hades, and then good and evil in regard to religious debates when I open this up for debate. So I don't know what no one ever cares about the actual topics being discussed that day. You might as well just not even have topics because like people are going to come and talk about stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about today. And people are promoting Mark Pazio. Dude, seriously? Mark Pazio? Oh my gosh. Mark Pazio! Natural law! You must be new here, right? I don't think anybody in these, I mean, veganism and natural law, come on, dude, libertarian, you're in the wrong area, bro. You need to go find a different place. This end niche of the internet will not be the place that you will be happy. And I want your happiness. So now this one was a little different because I wanted to tie this into what I talked about in the Epistemology book, which the chapter about nice, if you remember, we were talking about how worldviews and evidences aren't in the relationship between worldview and evidences is parts to whole. The way that you're going to interpret evidences is going to be determined by your governing presuppositions. And we talked about how Dr. Wood, in his really excellent epistemology introduction book, used Mark, the central character in the third C.S. Lewis space trilogy installment, That Hideous Strength, as someone who had a hard time making sense of why he was deceived or self-deceived to join NICE, basically the Illuminate Confirm. For all intents and purposes, it is the scientistic Illuminate Confirm in the third novel. And eventually, when he comes to the realization that he had been deceived and he had basically joined up with Gil Bates and Klaus Schwab, he couldn't, for a minute, understand why he didn't see the evidence. And then he realizes that, oh no, he did see the evidence. In fact, the evidence was there his whole life as a character flaw, as a flaw in virtue, which made him choose for nefarious, selfish, vice-related reasons the wrong evidences. You see, he pick and chose which piece of evidence, number one, that he would emphasize, which piece of evidence he would focus on or give priority status to, and then he would just simply ignore or discount counter evidences. And I'm not just talking about confirmation bias. I'm talking about something even more fundamental than that, which is that your view of truth, the good, etc., in relationship to virtue and vice and ethics will necessarily affect your epistemology or how you view good and evil, how you interpret evidences. And as you've heard me say many, many times, this relates to the problem of the neutrality fallacy, the assumption that there is a completely, purely neutral position which a human can take on various issues, or that you have a privileged epistemic status which grants you a non-biased, non-colored view of the facts, or that there are brute facts, or that everything isn't theory-laden, or that you can perform an epistemic bootstrapping project. And I couldn't help but watch, and it was weird because two films came across my viewing time right at the same time as I was reading this book that were perfect examples of this. The first was in Planet of the Apes, of all things. You damn dirty ape. Get your hands off me, you damn dirty ape, right? Charlton Heston, my Charlton Heston is pretty damn good. The professor, well, he's not really, he's like I don't know what he is. He's like the religious, he's like the Pope of the apes, basically. He's not really a professor, right? The professor is more like the husband and the wife ape. And then you got this character who's like the Pope of the apes. And every piece of evidence that comes along that contradicts his papal, his ape, the apacy, he really is the apacy, right? The Roman Catholic apacy in Planet of the Apes. Everything that contradicts the apacy, he reinterprets the evidence, you see. Do you remember this? And then finally it comes out that when Charlton Heston confronts him one-on-one in his office, and he's like, yeah, I knew that you were from some foreign other world, and that basically the ape religion is all a bunch of baloney. He's like, but we have to keep the myth going, you see. This is not esoteric Christianity. If you want to come debate Voluntary Planet, the Twitter space link is, let me get it for you. You can come join me on the Twitter space link. Otherwise, you're just wasting everybody's time, dude. Don't nobody care about your stupid astro-theology bullshit. Here's the Twitter space link. If you want to come debate, you can debate. There you go. You have to request to speak, and then I will give you the floor. So the apacy, the Roman Catholic apacy in the Planet of the Apes society, has a tight stranglehold on what facts and what knowledge, what information could come out, right? And on one level, it's kind of dumb because the movie's intended to be a, scientism, Darwinian ethos propaganda type of movie. But it does have this beautiful gem in it in terms of worldviews and philosophy that perfectly illustrates this point. And the reason I'm talking about all this is that the next movie that we're going to look at does the exact same thing in a different way. So go watch Planet of the Apes and you'll see what I mean. And that will help you understand everything that I've talked about in terms of the mistake that most of my debate opponents have been making. It's the mistake that Trent made. It's the mistake that Stefan Molyneux made. The mistake that Matt Dillahunty made. It's the mistake that Azra Rashid made. All based on the presuppositions of natural theology, foundationalism and its various variants, and the notion of self-evidency. So when Charlton Heston confronts Pope Ape, the apacy, and he says, yes, it's all a lie. And then at the very end, the weird part, when they're in the cave, if you remember, where the human civilization used to be, and they find a baby doll. And then finally, there's just so much overwhelming evidence that the Pope Ape has to admit, and he finally just kind of like gives up, right? He's like, I'm not going to tell the people that this is the case, but yeah, I give up. But I'm going to continue the lie. And so what he does is he suppresses the truth because he does not believe in the notion of virtue and truth. There is no virtue to truth, right? So there's no reason to tell the truth. So he has a moral flaw in his character, but whereby he rejects the intellectual virtues, and that clouds and destroys his fact-based interpretations of the evidence. Now, if human beings are fallen, and if we've been damaged, even in terms of our what we call the noetic effects of sin, how are we going to get to this ridiculous notion of brute factuality and things being self-evident? Again, Mark, from that hideous strength, right? He construed all of the evidences. And he comes to realize that. Is that right? The problem wasn't a lack of evidences or the evidences. The problem was me, my flawed character. The problem with the apacy in Planet of the Apes is not a lack of facts or evidences. It's a willful intention through bad character to lie and misconstrue the facts and the evidences. And in this installment here, we're gonna see the exact same problem illustrated. And I'm not gonna, if I give too much away, it will destroy the plot for you. But it is not the kind of movie that you think, right? So let's see. You're gonna notice a lot of patterns that emerge in this film. And this is particularly instructive, not just for people who have the worldview of classical foundationalism or the philosophical mistakes in the view of classical foundationalism, the basic sort of naive mistakes that they make. It's also applicable to people in the so-called conspiracy genre, or the world of alternative media and facts and research, because they will fall into the same mistake here. And it's a version of gambler's fallacy, right? Hope I didn't screw up my microphone here. Can y'all hear me okay? My microphone acting weird, dude. It's got like Christmas lights popping up. White and green. White, green, red. What does that mean? Can you hear me? Can y'all hear me? Okay, it looks like it's still working. I accidentally hit that button. I guess Spurgy with pushing buttons, like as like a, I don't know, am I stimming? I don't know. Am I stimming? I don't know. But maybe. I don't know. What were we talking about? Apacy, foundationalism, philosophy, horror. Oh, this movie. So gambler's fallacy is a great example of what, or sharpshooter, Texas sharpshooter. So noticing patterns that aren't actually patterns, or picking out sequences which may not necessarily be an intentional sequence, you see. What the heck is going on with this thing? Can y'all hear me? Okay, good. And this movie was an excellent illustration of this issue.
Who else is going to be there?
Just the old gang.
To you guys.
Cheers, mate.
We are friends from university.
I know that we haven't seen each other in ages.
Oh, years.
Yeah.
Listen, Pete, just so you know, you're not doing too well. Been a bit crap, haven't you?
What?
I just thought you should know.
Mate, come on, we're waiting. Oh, whoops. Oh, come on. Guys.
Everyone's being mean, and I don't know what's going on.
You're just a bit anxious. That's nothing.
So the setup for this movie was perfect, right? You got this guy who has been off doing Peace Corps work, so he's really full of himself. He's kind of like a borderline SJW douchebag, right? And he really sees himself as having transcended his old hometown friends, right? Like he's way morally superior to his hometown friends because, again, he's done this whatever kind of, foreign Peace Corps work, and he can't help but constantly tell everybody the story of how he helped out the refugees, right? And he's really proud of this, and he won't shut up about it, right? And so he keeps talking about it, and when he eventually gets called out over this, his friends point out that, like, you haven't even listened to anyone else's life. Like, we've been telling you what we've been up to, and every time we tell you what we've been up to, you resort to your sort of narcissistic repeating of working with the refugees, you see. And that's great and all, but bro, we're tired of it. Okay, we know you, we grew up with you. Okay. And so again, people in the chat that popped up, these weirdos, how did we get a bunch of Mark Pazio fans? Again, this is not the area. You guys are not going to have a lot of fun here. But if you would like to come on and debate, we will make it fun. So you're welcome here to join me in the Twitter space. Right there is the link. Come debate, all of you ethical, libertarian, natural law vegans. Anyway, so our protagonist guy is there with all of his old college friends, and there's a couple exes there, right? So he's got an ex-girlfriend there, a new girl he's dating that shows up, and the setup is perfect because we're out in the middle of nowhere in English countryside at this Downton Abbey, Rothschild, Eyes Wide Shut style estate. And we think that, oh, right, this has got to be like Eyes Wide Shut style satanic cult, right? Somebody's going to get murdered and or eaten. I mean, something's going on here. And the movie, again, I hate to use this it's a taut slow burn. It is a slow burn. And it keeps adding on more and more and more. And it's a genius way to, how can we keep upping the ante to where the facts that keep occurring to this guy, the brute facts, can actually be interpreted in two different ways. Okay. The whole time you're watching the film, you don't know if bloke there, I don't know what's bloke, what else is there? You don't know if bloke is the subject of a mind F, the level of which no one has seen since Michael Douglas in The Game, or whether literally every one of these strange events can also be interpreted in another way, another story or narrative, to make it actually make sense that it's actually not malicious. It's all innocuous. And that's the genius part of the movie. The genius part isn't even the reveal of the film, what's actually going on. The genius part is that they were able to construct this story in such a continually tension-building way that, for example, there's a scene where he has these organic pills that he's taking. By the way, he's not taking chalk. If you do want to take some good organic pills, he should have been taking at chalk.com. That would have been helping with the problems that he's actually having. And if you go over to Jay's analysis, if you go to chalk.com, CHOQ.com, put in the promo code J50 and you can actually get some mood calming, some consciousness enhancing, some testosterone boosting products like the Shilajit, like the ashwagandha, like the Tomcat, over at chalk.com. Put in the promo code J50, 50% off. But anyway, so he's taking some weird organic supplement, and he notices that one of them has been replaced with a pill. And he thinks that then, you see this weird guy who has showed up at the party with the small band of friends has put the pill in there because he made a joke about pills, right? And this weird guy is like writing down things that he says. And so there's a continual over and over and over, like events that occur that can be interpreted either way. And from a philosophical perspective, it's genius because it's instructive for the same way that we can find Planet of the Apes or Mark in That Heat of Strength's characters instructive, because we don't always know that the big story is correct. And we don't always know that the pieces of the story necessarily lead to the conclusion of that big story. I'm not saying that we never know. It's just illustrative that researchers, people can get into the mindset. It's a mistake that we often make where we get this detail right. We think we've got this, and then we come to this conclusion, and it turns out this and this were wrong, even though this and this were right. You see what I'm saying? So it becomes a big story, and we think we've put together the story, but we've actually misinterpreted the conclusion of a series of events. And it doesn't mean that everything was wrong, and it doesn't mean that everything was right. It can be a little bit of both, right? That's the problem with decoding events or stories. Think about the Big 9 event. Do I know every single detail exactly in terms of what occurred at the Big 9 event? No, but I have a sufficient amount of knowledge of the big macro story and events to know that the official Big 9 is not true. And that's the way I approach it. And this movie is a perfect analogy of that, right? It's just an accurate way to portray the problems that we encounter in terms of epistemology and in terms of storytelling and narrative for how we explain events in the world. That's what I'm trying to say. And it's not exactly the same as the problem of Planet of the Apes and non-neutrality. But the fact that reality isn't neutral and that it is theory laden can cause us to fall into the mistakes where we become convinced that a pattern of things leads to this conclusion. And it may not. It might be a little more complex than that. It might not be as black and white as that. It might be overall correct, but there might still be things in our story that are false or wrong or don't add up. Does that make sense? You see what I'm getting at?
Right?
Hey, chill out. Sorry.
No, don't worry. You're probably just paranoid about everything that happened yesterday.
You know I'm seeing a therapist? That's good. Yeah, we always hope you do that one day.
For you, isn't it? And enjoy yourself there.
Everybody loves you, PD.
There you go, right? I won't tell you any more than that because saying too much would give away the plot, but I'm going to go ahead and move on. You guys get the point, right? So these are good films for not so much esoteric analysis, but for illustrative philosophical purposes, right? We don't have to always do esoteric analysis. We can do movies that make points about, remember we did the movies that made points about psyops and intelligence, and we did Easy A and Cruel Intentions, two movies that you would not think would actually have super illustrative philosophical psychological warfare components, and yet surprisingly they absolutely did. Now, Last Night in Soho was a theater release that was late 2021. This was a good movie. I did not figure out this movie. It was anytime there's a twist that I don't figure out, I like the movie. And it was obvious from the trailer, right, that this is totally some kind of MK Ultra mind control, alternate personality, MPDDID thing. So that was what originally drew me to the film. And then we went and saw it. And I can't say too much because there's a big twist, right? A big Shyamalama Ding Dong level twist at the end, which I won't say. But aside from that, there is another, in my view, subtle theme of a MK Ultra kind of DID monarch programming theme in this. But for whatever reason, this girl is obsessed with the 60s. And she's obsessed with the 60s counterculture coming out of the UK, the British invasion, you see, like the Beatlesy. And although the CIA had a huge role in the counterculture in America, we know that this was coordinated at some degree with entities like the Tavistock in the UK. Now, I don't know if the Tavistock Institute created the Beatles. Okay, this is a popular conspiracy theory. I don't know if that is the case. I know that there is a degree of usage of the Beatles and their ethos and their marketing and their style to promote ideas, but I don't know if I can go so far as to say they're complete creation. Now, is it possible? It's possible, but I just can't prove that. Even though, yes, I know what John Coleman says. I've known about that for 15, 20 years. It's one of the oldest conspiracy theories out there. I know about the Frankfurt School. Oh, the Frankfurt School. I know about all that. I studied under people who were Frankfurt School trained, so I know all about it. But I can't prove that, so I just don't go too far into that, you see. And symbolism is one of the perfect areas to illustrate the problematic approach, the fallacious approach of what I was talking about in the previous movie, right? All My Friends Hate Me. What does that guy do if you watch the movie throughout the film? Every weird event that occurs, he interprets it in a kind of paranoid way that all of his friends are somehow colluding together to get him. And while there are genuinely bizarre events, and while at times the friends do kind of step over the line, we don't know if they're actually out to get him throughout the movie. And to apply it to the way people make mistakes in interpreting events and symbols in movies, they'll watch movies or they'll look at countercultural things and they'll see the usage of symbols over and over. Butterflies, all-seeing eye, pyramids, pentagram, 666, right? And they will assume that the usage of the symbol itself somehow makes it part of a global conspiracy, which is absurd. Symbols are inherently evil. Symbols are given the meaning that they have depending on their context. Okay? An upside down cross itself isn't even inherently evil or satanic. It's the cross of St. Peter because he was crucified upside down. Now, if I'm Anton LaVey and I'm wearing the upside down cross around my neck, then yeah, I probably have an evil intention in having that symbol in the way that it is, right? But symbols themselves are not inherently evil. It's the misuse and the inversion and the intentional context that helps us to determine the meaning of symbols. And this should be self-evident, right? But I still, to this day, almost every day, if not every day, will be accused of being some sort of Satanist or occultist because of an old joke picture where we took a picture in front of a movie set type of setup for the club, right? That had like bands that would come and play in front of these sets. They had like cheap skeletons and all this. It's really lame goth stuff, right? It'd be like saying that if I pose in front of a plastic skeleton, that I'm a goth kid or something, right? Or like I'm a Satanist because I'm in front of a skeleton. Well, there was a wooden casket that had an inverted cross that somebody had made with electrical tape, okay? And there was an airbrush snake on the wall, and it was like the most ridiculous B-movie type stuff, like a B set, like Mystery Science Theater level stuff, right? We thought this was funny, so we had taken these pictures. And then that got turned into oh, look, he's at a satanic club, part of a black mass, dude. This is a stupid bar that has rap bands come and play. It's like goth and rap bands. It's not a satanic club. Nothing was even going on. Nobody was even drinking at this thing or doing any kind of drug. It was ridiculous. It was like a clean club. I think it was when like they could even have it was like the night when younger people under 21 can come, like 18 to 21 can come. One of those nights, right? I mean, it was just stupid, right? But you'll notice people will do this. Well, oh, you see the symbol, that means this. And in all cases, it must mean this. It's a version of the word concept fallacy with symbols. Well, think about a lion. What does the symbol of a lion mean? It's the devil. Is it always the devil? I mean, Jesus is the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And yet, Satan is like a lion who goes around seeking whom he may devour. So the symbol of the lion can be used of Jesus or of the devil in different ways. And if you were consistent and you really thought that, as a lot of fundamentalist, evangelical, and goofy people think, you would be led to like Charles Manson theology, right? If the lion is God and he's the devil, then the true God is God and the devil, right? That's the Charles Manson line of thinking. It's the Manson word concept fallacy. I'm not joking either. It's literally, Carl Jung does the exact same thing, right? You see people do this with Lucifer or the bright and morning star. Okay, one text of scripture says Lucifer is like the bright and morning star. Another text says Christ is like the bright and morning star. And it's just comparing different elements of Venus, in one case to the rising of the resurrection, and in another case to Satan. Just like the lion in certain aspects is compared to Christ, but in other aspects is compared to Satan. And this is so stupid and low IQ. It's so utterly dumb and very obvious that symbols have the meaning they have in context that I can't believe people can't figure this out. And they just sort of chirp and repeat these stupid things, not even realizing how dumb this is. When she dissociates, right, and she goes into her sleepy state or dream state, and she starts to see these events, and we get the idea that this girl might have a degree of autism, or she's a little off, right? She's got something about her, and she seems to have these dissociative states where she starts to think that she's an alternate personality when she passes out or sort of goes to sleep or whatever is going on when she's renting out this weird room in the city. And she starts seeing all these things from the 60s, it looks like. And she starts piecing together this story about this girl who had been pimped out by this skanky chav dude. And she starts to think, oh, the ghost is contacting me to solve the trauma, right? This is always the thing, right? In the ghost story, the ghost wants to solve the trauma. This movie does not go with that, right? And that's partly what made this really good, is that it's not the old, the ghost needs me help to solve his crime. Somebody cut the wibble wobble off the ghost. and he bled out and died, and now he's haunting me back room. Got to figure out who cut off his wibby wobble. He's speaking to me in me dreams. Hope I can figure it out, 'cause he's me friend. Got me ghost friends. I'm a ghost detective. This is like 1,000 ghost stories, right? This is the plot of 1,000 ghost. Why? This is so dumb too. Like the ghost can write shit on the wall, but he can't just tell you it was the caretaker that murdered me, right? Like why can't he write that on the wall? Does the ghost not know who killed him? But no, the ghost needs you to do a freaking QAnon Rubik's Cube puzzle for 2 hours to figure out. Like, why doesn't the ghost just arrange the toys saying who the name of the killer was? You see, this is so dumb, right? Anyway, but Doctor Who. And we know there's a lot of the playing with the imagery and the symbolism of the, mind control, monarch programming stuff. Because the movie's full of mirrors. It's full of the imagery that suggests that, right? The dream state. It's a movie about, well, it's kind of about, it's like dissociation and ghosts at the same time, kind of. And it reminds me of Cruella too, because that also took place at the outbreak of the 60s counterculture revolution in the UK, again, which is a big hotbed of this, probably largely to do with Tavistock and the Royal Society circles. Yes, no doubt about that. I can't prove that the Beatles are a Tavistock creation, so I don't go with that. But it does remind me of the fact that there's the element of the fashion scene too, right? And multiple movies have used this theme of fashion models and the fashion world, which I don't know anything about because I am heterosexual. That's a bunch of mind control, weird stuff going on, right? And let's think about the different films that involve that. So you've got, remember Looker? I did a whole breakdown of Looker. That was a really good film. I did not expect this goofy kind of late 70s, early 80s movie to be such a sort of powerful mind control MK Ultra movie. If you've not seen Looker, definitely go watch that. Watch my breakdown. Zoolander.